everyone. It's Shauna, Sylvester, and we are live here in Glasgow. Welcome to the Cities and COP26 briefing, your daily digest of what's going on at COP. It's day 4, and we have a great briefing plan for you today. I am very excited to be joined by, and I'm going to use it, Dr. Bruce Lourie. I don't get to often say Dr. Bruce Lourie, but I want to acknowledge your academic background in addition to everything else, Bruce. Now, Bruce, for those of you who don't know me, I should say I am the executive director of the SFU Morris J. Wosk Center for Dialogue. I'm also leading and convening a group of cities and city organizations for COP26 here. And we've just finished a fabulous briefing in the Blue Zone Pavilion, and we're coming off on a bit of a high on that. So Bruce, it's so great to have you here. For those of you who don't know Bruce, and I think that there's probably almost no one in Canada that doesn't know Bruce, Bruce has been part of the climate change scene for years. He's an award-winning author. He is the CEO of the Ivey Foundation. And through your work, Bruce, on boards as well, whether it's on hydro-related issues, the Institute for Climate Choices, the work that you've done on clean prosperity, your Canadian Energy Research Institute, you've been at this for a very long time. And I want to ask you, I want to begin by asking you, Bruce, why are you at COP? What is it about COP that compelled you to come?
Well, that is a good question, because despite working on climate change for 30 years, I typically never go to COP. But this year just felt a little bit different. I thought that, I'm encouraged that I'm feeling what I was hoping I would feel, which is like a lot of people at COP really working to solve climate change. And I think so often in the past, it felt like, a lot of people were worried about climate change, or protesting about climate change, or fighting the idea that climate change is real. And now it feels like we've got the world mobilized together around net zero, around solving climate change. And whether it's pavilions of companies, whether it's groups of young people, whether it's countries around the world, just really stopping in at Saudi Arabia or the Arab Emirates or Korea, and just seeing the consistency and the dedication to really work on this global problem.
So I want to give people a sense of what's going on here. What's the feeling? What are you seeing when you walk into either the blue zone or the green zone or the city of Glasgow, or even Edinburgh, because things are going on there? What are you seeing? Let's give a sense for people what's going on here.
Yeah, sure. It's it seems to be quite a well-organized event, which is nice. It was kind of tough leading up to it, of course, with COVID, and our Canadian election made it difficult for some of us in Canada trying to get prepared. But the event's well organized. The pavilion room that you're referring to is really, I think, where the most interesting action is. Lots of people, lots of fabulous displays, small one-off presentation events going on constantly. And it really does, it literally is the world in a room. And you get a great flavor for what's going on in the world just wandering through there. I managed to attend, so it's in this huge convention center, long walks between rooms, and I did attend the Powering Past Coal event today with our very own Stephen Guilbeault, the Environment and Climate Change Minister, as the co-chair of the Powering Past Coal Alliance. And of course, Canada's done a great job in coal phase out, which I'm proud of the role I was able to play in that. So I think what you see is like lots of people, lots of interesting ideas. It's clear that this is a big deal for Scotland and the city of Glasgow. Like, there's posters everywhere, people everywhere, restaurants are packed, lots of people on the streets. But it all feels very positive.
Did you expect that it would be feeling positive?
No, I don't know. No, I was I mean, I was hoping that it would, but for some reason I was not. I guess I'm generally a little skeptical of the big global gatherings, and I think just the combination of the people I've run into, people that you hear talking on the street or in restaurants. Like it just, yeah, it's more positive than I was expecting.
Yeah, I think everybody expected it to be very subdued, and it's just the
Yeah,
opposite, isn't it?
yeah, yeah.
So in the last 24 hours, there's been a lot of conversation about finance and green finance. You have worked in the space of finance, and particularly from not necessarily in the banking finance, but you certainly know a lot about that. But I'm thinking from the philanthropic sector. I want to get a sense from you on your thoughts on green finance and what's the role of the philanthropic sector itself in the financing of climate action.
I'm actually running straight from here to a dinner to talk exactly about that. It's yeah, it certainly comes up. I know even in the Powering Past Coal event, the idea that many countries around the world and many major financial institutions around the world are still investing in coal projects, coal plants, and that really has to stop. I mean, I think what's clear and what we're seeing more and more is the idea that we just need to stop investing in fossil fuels and we have to start winding down the production of fossil fuels. And I don't think that was something that was widely accepted and was understood actually, and certainly the activists were on that for many years, but I think the recognition is really hitting home. We also saw an announcement yesterday that included Canada as well, looking at having all of the international development organizations within countries stopping the continued investment in fossil fuels. So really, a very important announcement as well. So I think what I also feel generally is that people are skeptical that anything actually happens at COP, that everything's negotiated in advance or everyone knows what they're going to do. But it really does feel like there are negotiations going on, there are decisions being made, and progress and good announcements are coming out of it. And I frankly didn't expect that.
I'm not sure many people expected it. And I want to, if you have a chance to talk, you've talked about the powering beyond coal, maybe talk a little bit about what you've seen Canada do here. You had a chance to be a part of that, and just want to get your impressions of Canada and how Canada is showing up here.
Yeah. And I'll just, and maybe just, I didn't really answer your last question very well either. I think there's the private, major capital markets that are putting lots of money into things, and a lot of that has to change. And then there's what foundations do with their own resources. What I find gets missed in it, a lot of foundations are talking about how to improve their investments as foundations, a lot of investment. But I think what philanthropy is still missing is to fund the organizations that are helping shift the systems around finance. We do a lot of that, but I actually find there aren't many other foundations out there that want to get in the game of changing the big finance system. And there's, as I said, lots of people talking about their own portfolios, but foundations are a speck of dust in the world of global capital markets, and we're not, through our own investments, going to change. I mean, it's good for us, but it's not going to change the world.
So over on Canada, do you see Canada, what's your assessment so far of what Canada's doing here?
Yeah, I mean, I'm going to say, honestly, in my 30 years of working on climate change, I've never been more optimistic about where Canada is at. I think we have, an extraordinary new environment and climate change minister. I think it's super exciting that Jonathan Wilkinson has gone to natural resources. I think the idea that we've got an alignment between the infrastructure department and intergovernmental affairs through Dominic LeBlanc is really important. I think we've got strong people throughout the government, the PCO, the Prime Minister's office. Like it feels to me, and then together we've got, the Net Zero Advisory Body, which is being, very capably managed. We've got the Canadian Climate Choices that you referred to, with Rick Smith as the new CEO there. So I just can't imagine things better aligned for us. That where we have work to do, and which is, I know where you're going to get to, is there's the role of the provinces and the role of the cities. So of course we've got the federal government, and that's looking, as good as it ever has. The reality is the federal government has to have partnerships with provinces, and they have to have partnerships with cities to really deliver on the kinds of big change we need.
So thank you for taking us there. Let's go through that a little bit and get a better sense of, often we hear that, cities are a creation of the provinces. And so there isn't an opportunity for the federal government to have a direct relationship with cities. There's certainly, that has changed over the last number of years. And I want to get a sense from you where you see cities going as key actors on climate. Because if you look at the GHG reductions, as we know from our conversations, as we look at those GHG reductions, so many of them are coming from cities and the actions that cities are taking. So I want to get your sense of cities as actors.
Yeah, and I think I agree. I've seen, in fact, some very specific examples of the federal government wanting to work directly with cities and with regions within provinces, so multiple city regions. And so we're seeing some of this around the development of hydrogen hubs across Canada, which is really important. There's some outstanding work being done in northern Alberta on hydrogen hubs. I think we're going to see some really interesting work in Hamilton. And so there's a couple of things. I see the ability of the federal government, provinces, cities to work together around some of the transition that needs to take place in these big regional areas. And that could be investment in things like hydrogen. It could be in things like in Hamilton, for example, or other areas where we're seeing, cleaning up the steel industry, or where we have cement facilities. And so there's a direct opportunity for direct investment in the transition of those major industrial facilities. And then the big one is infrastructure. To me, it's like infrastructure. So how do we build infrastructure for electrification? How do we basically make sure that buildings, so cities and provinces have a major role in the efficiency and design of buildings. So that's huge. So you've got buildings and transportation, and cities are all over both of those, as you know. We need the infrastructure to electrify. We need infrastructure for uses of hydrogen, and we need to make buildings far more efficient and ultimately, fundamentally, and sooner rather than later, we have to shift the huge amount of natural gas that is being used to heat commercial buildings and heat houses to alternative forms that are non-emitting. And that is a monumental undertaking that very few people, I think, have their head around. And cities, I think cities kind of have to get on that, like proactively. You can't wait for the provinces. And I think the feds are anxious to do things. So the opportunity for those city federal partnerships, I think, really big, really important.
Really important in terms of, now you've got one request in the chat. We've got a question that says, hey, can this Institute for Climate Choices disaggregate data on cities? So that's just, I'm going to put that out there as a request, because I have one, we only have a couple minutes left. And I want to ask you, for those that are watching from Canada in local communities, really trying to grapple with the relevance in this moment that we're in. When you go home on November 12th, you're opening up, you're watching TV, you're looking at the newspaper. What's the headline you want to see here at home in Canada about what's just happened?
COP generally, or cities specifically, or?
You can do both.
Okay. Well, I would, let's see, I would really love to see something relating to actually buildings, because I think it's a really important piece of the puzzle that, as I said, is a very tough one. If there was some national effort that came together through some city partnerships with other levels of government to really focus on net zero buildings, I think that would be a great announcement for somebody to make.
So I see a headline around maybe a national building code.
Yeah, no, net zero, national net zero building code. So yeah.
You'd be aligning yourself today with David Miller of C40 and Carol Saab of the Federation of Canadian Municipalities, who asked for that. That was the headline, one of the headlines they wanted to see.
So seriously? Oh, wow.
Okay. So you're just minutes away. So you're all on the same level. Bruce,
Okay.
I know you've got a busy schedule while you're here. I'm excited that you're going to spend the night talking about green finance. That's great news. I wish you well in the rest of these days, and thank you for bringing your smarts, your ideas to the table at COP. It's great to have you here. Thanks
My
so much.
total pleasure always, Shauna. Thank you.